we have to create the right vibe, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Purely Arsenal FP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another episode of a sit down at a Purely Arsenal podcast, and I am joined by Neil Shah. He's back. He's believing in the transfer rumours now. They're edging closer. They're almost on the ticker tape, and Neil's ready to predict the future. How you doing, Neil?
I don't know what I'm doing on transfer talk shows these days. What's going on? What's happening,
mate? It's fun. It's exciting because it actually follows through with Mikel Arteta.
This is you boys' forte, not me. But anyway, we've signed someone, so I'm happy to talk about Havertz. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, yippee-ki-yay. Arsblog stole that from me. Not good. But I've also got James Johnstone with me. How you doing, James?
Oh, very good. And it's good to see, Neil Shah at the bottom, our transfer specialist. He's here. It's fantastic.
Yeah. We're reeling him in. He's loving it. A slice of rice is what we're going to be talking about. The price of rice as well is what we're going to be talking about. Last week we kind of predict week by week, and I predicted that I thought it was inevitable that if City came in, they'd probably get him. The pessimism in me, and James, you believed that we'd splashed 100 out, and I think even that was surprising to most. Maybe they thought we'd bid again, but not 100 sort of outlay with 5 add-ons. It was a big jump. So obviously you were vindicated when you saw that bid, James. But were you surprised that City pulled out so quickly? Did you think we always had it in a bag? And how significant a moment do you think this could be? Because this is, I'm looking at, this would be the second largest transfer in the league, the biggest British transfer in the league. We aren't the richest club in the league. We're not even the second or third richest club in the league. So it's a significant outlay. We've obviously really focused on this player for many, many months. Obviously, the big outlay's been coming. We've been trying to look for a big purchase, but it feels like we've really, really wanted Declan Rice. I just wondered how significant you could feel and how you felt this last week has played out, James, with City backing out of it. I woke up and City back out of it. I was in shock, to be honest.
Okay, so to answer your first question, no, it's fine. No, we'll do it in order. When I saw that City were interested, obviously you do have you get touchy and nervy. However, when it was so delayed, I thought that they're never really in the race anyway. I don't get this whole David Icke type conspiracy of that he's made a call to Pep and said, can you do this? So it pushes, because why would Pep want to help Mikel get a player? In what world does that? I know he sold 2 of them to him last season, but I don't get in what world that happened. Like, why would you directly strengthen a rival, but then potentially weaken them financially? It just didn't make sense to me. But my whole thing was, and we said it on the WhatsApp, I think it was, and I made the comparison to Craig David. Man City on the Monday were linked with Kovacic. On the Tuesday, they bid for Kovacic. On the Wednesday, they'd signed Kovacic. Then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they chilled on the Sunday. But so for me, if Man City wanted Declan Rice, they'd have just gone, hello, West Ham, bang, bang, F Arsenal. Thank you for Declan Rice. That's what they do. They don't muck around. They sometimes pull away. Look at what happened with Cucurella. They've got, as much as there's all these charges and everything else against them, they've got a structure of if we think it goes too much that one way, then we're gonna pull back and we'll find something else, and they find something else. But in terms of, was I surprised at the amount? No, I always believed that was what we were going to do. Like I said last week, I just felt that there was so much groundwork that had been done for us not to get this deal done. We would have looked incredibly silly, unless, of course, a Man City come in and, like the rumours and that said, will blow you out the water. If they blow you out the water, then you can give it the sort of, well, look, we tried, but this financial state-backed superpower has just completely mullered us, instead of, yeah, we tried and we failed because we're just not very good at getting things over the line, which a lot of people felt, and I can understand. And then in terms of what this does for us, you know, we've said for months, this, as much as I don't feel Thomas Partey's a complete write-off, there is, again, serious reservations about his fitness, stuff that I won't even want to get into. And we've all said we need a starting six. I think he played something like 97 or something % of West Ham's games last season, and there are 2 a-week players. We're getting rid of Granit Xhaka. I know you want to get into sales later, but I think he is definitely going. That's a humongous influence and character on the dressing room. This guy is another humongous influence and character in the dressing room. He's been the captain. And as much as it's a third, you know, as much as people want to diminish it, and it, you know, it is the third tier of European football, he has captained his team to a European trophy. There's no one else in that changing room that has captained his team to a Jorginho's won 2 of them. Havertz has won 1 of them, but he has not been the captain. He's not been so I believe next season in the Champions League, you know, Jack, you know me, I'm a humongous fan of the UFC. You have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. There's other players there that might panic when things aren't going right in these 2-legged European games. Someone like Declan Rice, who's been there, done it. You know, the season before he got to the semi-final, bear in mind, he went far last season in that competition as well. So he can, I feel he's going to be another,
on top of that as well. Yeah,
exactly. He's another good influence on that team, as well as just his ability to carry the ball. Same as Timber. We've got 2 people that are brilliant at carrying the ball. And we want to get into, you know, dominating the ball so that we can just completely blitz teams. Again, 5 points. It was only 5 points. That's 2 games, you know, that we lost out on the title. We got to close that, you know, we got to close a 2-game gap, which basically means we got to beat them in one of the 2 games that we play them, for me, to win. And with these players coming in, I feel that's achievable, and I'll stop whittling on so Neil can have a say.
No, you make a lot of good points. You mentioned, you know, about the reliability factor. Xhaka leaving, he's played over 32 games in the last 5 seasons for in the Premier League. Declan Rice, he played 37 last season. He actually played about 50 games for West Ham last season because he played all 10 games in the Europa League. So we're targeting young, experienced players that are fit regularly, Neil. If you put Havertz, Timber and Declan Rice into one hand, you could count the amount of games they've missed in the last season on the other. That's basically what we're looking at. And that might be a factor when it comes to Thomas Partey. You saw how quickly he lost faith in Kieran Tierney. And whilst I think it might have been a technical thing, it could have also been a reliability thing. You know, he could have just been a little bit fed up that he couldn't rely on Kieran Tierney anymore. And he might be going that same way with Thomas Partey because, again, even though he had a relatively fit season, he still was out for 8-10 games, you know, Thomas Partey. And we always felt like we were kind of wrapping him in cotton wool, sending physios over to international games with him and things like that. But, Neil, it's 105. I just never thought I'd see the day when I sort of would be mentioning us as one of the highest priced incoming transfers. Remember back in the day where, even when Wenger's day, where United would get Rooney for 30 million and Rio Ferdinand, we weren't even in the running. We weren't even, and that was a huge amount of money in that day, 30 million, you know. And it took us years to get to a player that was worth 30 million. It was you're probably talking Alexis, which is about 10 years later. So that's where we've been at in terms of these financial powerhouses. I just wonder, what do you think of the signing, first of all? But also, what do you think's allowed us to make such a significant purchase? Because a lot of people questioned it, right? After the Mudryk saga and the Caicedo stuff, a lot of people said, we're not willing. We've been burnt too much from the Pepe saga. We're not willing. We feel a little bit too reluctant to do it. But we've gone and looked like we've gone and done it.
just quickly addressing Pepe, I think, everyone makes mistakes. I hate to tarnish Pepe as a mistake, but unfortunately, it just never worked out for him. I still believe that he was a player with talent, but it just wasn't right for him. He only had that shining game really against Liverpool, and we were all like wowed that he's probably one of the only players that can just handle Van Dijk at the time. But it just didn't. He scored a couple of great free kicks and a couple of good goals, but not consistent enough. And it was an error, a hugely costly one. But we have to live and learn with that. That's still what's probably got us into the realm of this humongous amounts of money and able to dish them out. I think it's the work, obviously, Edu behind the scenes, but what Arteta's done on the pitch. He's proven that he can take a group of players, he can get them singing all from the same hymn sheet, get rid of the egos, get them playing for one cause, one vision, which he's kind of just mapped for everyone. He's got the club together in a harmonious way. And I just feel that he's proven to the owners that, look, if you give me the resources, I can take this club to success. And I just think that's what's done it. It's been hugely influential. I don't think for a minute, if we didn't get the top four, we would have been doing investing the kind of money that we've already seemed to have done. Even I'm willing to suggest that, it looks like Rice is ours, but not quite. 99.9%, 99.9%, not yet quite.
We've turned him, Jack. He's turning.
110%.
No.
He's there.
99.9% is not 100%, Jack.
He's reading the Metro.
If this falls apart, that's it. I'm done forever.
I'll take the hit. If it does.
I'm telling you. I just feel that. So a great deal of credit has to go to Edu and Arteta. I think they're very cute in what they're doing. They really are. You guys have summed it up brilliantly in previous pods about he's been cute even with the departures. I know you said earlier in the top of this podcast that I don't know why we seem to be a little bit more weaker with the outgoings. But if you think about the outgoings that he's got rid of, the deadwood that he has got rid of, it's quite incredible. I don't think that would have happened under Wenger, and not the way that Arteta did it. He just saw that some players are just not the right fit. You're gone. I don't care what wage you're on. I don't care what your how much of a reputation you've created in the past. The name of your name at the back of the shirt. Don't care. He's managed to do that, and he's managed to, by doing that, he's relaxed the wages or the strain on the wage, the financial strain of the amount of weights that these wages carried, and that's allowed us to dip into the market. And make this money available. So I think there's that you've got to give them credit, and I think that's great. And then it's not just about the amount of money and the talent of these guys. James beautifully depicted what Rice will bring. It's the fit. It's how they will fit in. Declan Rice doesn't come across as one of these guys that's got an ego, you see, and that's hugely important. And I think he's going to be a massive asset. So much so I'll already put him in the same bracket for me as how important Saliba is to this team and how vital it is to get that signing, the contract extended. That's got to happen. So I think that's key. With Kilohertz, I'm happy.
Just before you go. Where do you think he fits in? I want to talk about Kai Havertz, but do you think he fits in? Me and James have been debating a lot for the last 2 weeks. Do you think he just fits into the six? I mean, I've got some data on him, and I'll read different types of data on him every day now. We've probably signing him, and his biggest area of excelling is ground duel success, ball recoveries, and interceptions. I mean, that is where he's better than almost any midfielder I put him up against. I could put him up against even Real Madrid players and Casemiro in the league, Caicedo, and he'll beat them all on it. So that starts to make me think he plays in Partey's role. But there's been a lot of argument that he might play higher up because of the legs that he's got, the energy that he's got. We can convert him like we converted Xhaka. I just wondered what you thought before we sort of speak about Havertz, what you thought on that.
If Partey goes, then I think that he's of who we've got, he's probably the best fit. because I don't see Jorginho, who could potentially sit in there, playing regularly. Declan Rice, you see, Declan Rice is Saka 2.0 because Saka starts every game and he's played so many games. He's broken the record, isn't he? And you can see Declan Rice, touch wood,
playing, yeah.
He will not be the kind of player that's going to get injured, and he's going to be consistent and reliable. You talked about reliability. Well, he fits the bill, doesn't he? So I think if that's the case and Partey is going to go, then yes, I can see him fitting in that position. I think a lot depends on what decisions are made with Partey. I still see a good player in Partey. Let me just quickly touch on that. I like the guy. I know what you guys are saying, and you're quite right and vindicated by saying all of that, but there's still something in him. I think it depends on, I mean, we've already got quite a good mix there. Obviously, if Declan Rice, it crosses the line and we get him. But I still feel that if Partey was to go, I still would like another player in the midfield. And if that's going to be someone like Caicedo, well, fine. Then, yeah, happy days. But if he stays, then there are options. This is what I like about this team. In every part of this pitch, there can be utility. Arteta and Edu have signed and got players in that can be utility players as well, whether they've come from the academy or we bought them externally, and we can chop and change it. And that not only helps with potential injuries and suspensions, but it also helps us with tactics and bamboozling and confusing the opponent. And I love it. It's great. Kilohertz, just quickly, I think, James, again, you made a great point. We've got 6 winners. We've got Jesus, Zinchenko, Hertz, Jorginho, Declan Rice, if he crosses the line. That's 5 winners now on, major events. I mean, all right, we can debate on whether what West Ham did was a major event or not, but it is classified as a major trophy in Europe, and that's tremendous. So, and he's the kind of player that he can head. I mean, he's obviously been more successful in the Bundesliga. He's a great header of the ball. He's a great finisher. I've seen a few videos of him where he can win the ball back, and he's got great skill with his feet. I think he'll work with us where Arteta will get the best out of him. He couldn't do that at Chelsea. I think we're going to see the Leverkusen version of him rather than the Chelsea version of him at Arsenal. I think it's a great signing. Great signing. Yeah,
and it's ridiculously gone under the radar.
Can I just jump in?
Go ahead,
quick. Neil, do you remember when we were speaking about the All or Nothing documentary, and it was the episode where they were trying to sell Aubameyang or talking about selling Aubameyang, and they had in the office the big board, if you remember, and it had all the players on it and what position, and we were talking about like, cool, how big's that board going to have to be now? I can't imagine how big, because you can just, how they've got everyone's name and they're like, right, he's here and we've got these two underneath. You can go with that Timber. Oh, I can put him at the centre back one. I can move this one. So you can just swap it,
Versatility FC, innit?
Yeah, the guys that have the cups with the coins in like Camden and what's the other place in London with a little market in and everything else.
Borough Market, Camden.
Yeah, and they all swap it like that, don't they? And then you try and guess where the coin is. That's what they'll be doing with the players' names. They'll just go, you can just interchange them wherever you want.
It's the unpredictability factor, but it's also the in-game solving factor without having to necessarily sub players out, isn't it? You can move players on the pitch that are already on there into different areas and you can solve problems. And he's been like that since the start, Arteta. He's really been like that since the start. I mean, when we first were trying to work out, we couldn't really identify the type of play but we knew that he was trying to identify players that could play in multiple positions, right? As early as, some of his early signings, we were like, oh, he's identifying these players because they can play in multiple positions, right? Ben White, right back, right centre back, played in midfield a little bit. Gabriel Jesus, he could play all across the front line. He just keeps doing it. So you sense that with a lot of the players. There's a specific type of player, young, experienced, fit regularly, and if they can play in more than one position, they're bound to be probably on our radar somewhere, if they're highly regarded. But just going back to that, I mean, do you remember when Wenger signed Ozil and he said we now have the financial capability to sign one big player every summer. We're all like, oh, what this big? But the problem was we were signing players, even though they were really big players, they were cast-off players, really. So it was like Ozil, Alexis, Aubameyang, Lacazette. Not Lacazette so much, but they were players that had kind of tried to do it at the top club, hadn't quite, and then we would get them, and we would get them at at the late moment in a window or something like that. So it wasn't really doing it from a proactive point of view and a team that was really asserting their authority in the market. This is a really big moment in terms of what we've done in the market, because City wanted him. They weren't willing to go to where we were with it, but I think they also knew that we had the agreement of the player. And I think that's a really big thing that we've noticed with these three players is Arteta and Edu have done the groundwork, right? They've really put in the work to say, we are going to make sure we convince the player before anything else. The agent, the player, the family, convince them first before we even try to deal with the clubs. Now, I don't know how that relates to tapping up and all that kind of stuff, but through intermediaries, we seem to be really convincing players of what the project is at Arsenal. Look at Havertz, linked to Bayern, linked to Real Madrid. Once he heard we were in, he wasn't really fussed, was he? He was like, well, I'm going to Arsenal. And he was very happy to do so. And with Rice, I mean...
You say this as well, Jack, but they've all got eyes, mate. They can all see what's happening. They like
what they see.
Yeah,
they like what they see.
Exactly. And I'll always say it as well. Just talking about it with the markets and everything. London's still a pull. That's the one thing that Arsenal can always have is London's still one of the greatest cities in the world, regardless of the crime rate. It's still one of the greatest cities in the world. Yeah,
no, I agree. I mean, yeah, there's definitely that. That's a huge factor, and everyone's been watching us, and it's nice to see. Bellingham sort of mentioned about not wanting to go to a fabricated club and things like that, and it's nice to hear that. It's refreshing, with the amount of money that's going around in these clubs at the moment. You can see why people would just go there, and maybe he's looked at other things as well. He's looked at Calvin Phillips getting 3 minutes of football season and things like that. Obviously, he's another level to Calvin Phillips. But I watched, obviously, once you get close to sign a player, you watch everything on him. I watched some YouTube clips of him just doing sort of Tekka stuff, like Zinchenko and Xhaka did. Honestly, the guy is technically, I've not watched Rice enough, because I'm watching him. I'm going, where is this technique coming? He's unbelievable. Ping the ball wherever you want to a dot. I'm like, where has this come from? It's really impressive. You get a chance to flick through some of the YouTube.
And he's a rapper.
And he's a rapper. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. He seems like a really nice guy as well. I mean, I saw some of the stuff with the West Ham fans last season, and
that's why
he did come across as a really and that's a huge thing for him, isn't it? It's not just the player; it's the total person, and he wants to make sure that the spirit of the team is correct. So I just think it's a really significant signing. It wasn't necessarily the one that I thought we'd go for, even the one that was highest on my list, but I've really looked at it and thought, wow, that is just a huge signing to get one of the biggest players in England, future England captain. We just wouldn't have been in the running. And it's crazy. I mean, I can't wait almost for the announcement and where it's gonna go from there. But getting him in early as well, Neil. Me and James talked about this last week. We said, when have we been in a position like we were last season? Everyone criticised us last season towards the end of summer. But what they didn't realise was the reason we had such a good start to the season was because all of our players were in by mid-July. We wanted one more, but it wasn't massively important on Arteta's agenda, otherwise we would have got it. And actually, if you remember, the reason we wanted one more was because El Neni tore his ACL and Partey got injured at the start of the season, and we all went, whoa, and that's why we went in for Douglas Luiz. If that hadn't happened, we probably would have gone, we've kind of done what we thought we were going to do here. And again, like I heard you say on Mike's pod, hopefully we can look later in the window and get one or two in if need be, but we don't have to, and it's not essential, and they're not going to necessarily be straight into the team and starters, whereas these three all have the capability, clearly, of going into that first team pretty early. Maybe Timber has a little bit of a settling in period, but Havertz and Rice, for sure, you could see him turning up that first day of the season, couldn't you? Just going back to, I'm going to come back to James in a sec, but just going back to you on Havertz, Neil, you said you see him sort of fitting in like he did in Germany. I think me and James came around that way of thinking as well, that he was going to fit into that 8. I just wondered if you worry about a bit of a transition period, 2 new midfielders. If you're losing Xhaka, you're possibly losing Partey, or at the very least you're maybe replacing Partey. It's a big transition for any club to change a whole central midfield, which was largely successful for us last season, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's going to be, but the thing is, we've got to move forward, and we've got to tackle. Xhaka, as great as he's been, I mean, it's sad to see him go, but inevitably, I think that's it. I think he's been waiting to find out, or the club's been waiting to see if they can bag someone like Rice and bag a couple of midfielders to change the engine completely, and then that's it. That he'll be off, and it's always a massive thing, isn't it, when you lose a player that's been influential. We've had it over the years where Wenger had to sell a marquee player every blooming season to fund the stadium. We've been through it. We've been hit hard with some of them, but like we sold Van Persie to our rival. I mean, hopefully we'll never do anything like that again. He literally won the title for Man United the next season after that happened. So it's hard, and there's going to be a slight transition. Of course, it's the engine, it's the heart of the team. But I think the quality is there for it not to be too much of a problem. And then we've got the quality players around them as well to help them through that transition. If Saliba signs his extension, he stays, we're rock solid in the defence anyway. That's without Timber, influencing it at all. He doesn't need to straight away. He might have a bit of a transition, as you said, but we've got our rock solid defence already in Gabriel and Saliba anyway. So they're going to help those players just in front of them feel more comfortable. Declan Rice, I can't see him having any issues. I just can't. And even with Kai Havertz, I mean, at the end of the day, the quality is there, the experience is there, the Premiership experience is there, which is the key thing. I can't see much, to be honest, if any. I think they're just going to slot in beautifully, and it's just going to work. And I think Arteta and Edu have probably looked at that as well. They must have done. Gone are the days where, as you said, it's very reactionary what we're doing. We're getting things done early. And the fact that we've got some really quite juicy pre-season friendlies against some huge names. Yeah. And they'll play. They'll feature. Of course they're going to play. And that is what I've always said it. I know I said it on Michael's podcast, but getting them in early is so important to adjust not only to a footballing life, but just to adjust to a new life. We're all human beings. If you you did it, Jack. You moved to America. It takes a little bit of time. You're getting used to a brand new environment, and that affects you as a human being. That affects you maybe in your job as well. But football is a job for them as well as something they probably love doing. But, I think the fact that we've got them in early and we can get these pre-season friendlies with them involved is massive. Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, I mean, our pre-season starts next week. Obviously some of the players that played internationals won't come back initially, but Nuremberg we travel to on the 10th or 11th of July, around that time. They'll be going to that. And the thing with it is that, like you said, you make a great point, because we've brought in two players that are probably going to start for us in the central midfield. I think we're coming around to the fact he's going to, especially after his Havertz comments, which said he's going to offer us a lot of midfield. I think that was this week, wasn't it, James? So it's going to be really important. We're not necessarily going to see a pre-season that's quite as fluid, because when it's a brand new field, there's going to be some teething problems, and we're coming up against, like Neil said, big size. It's gone are the days of Arsene Wenger where we played Barnet and teams from Austria that he didn't know. Do you remember towards the latter stages, he started going to Singapore because he knew he had to, and you could tell he hated it. He hated it. He didn't want to do any of it. But now, commercially, you have to do it. You have to play the teams that you're going to play all season. Big, Barcelona's, Real Madrid, teams in your own league, but 5,000 miles away, because that's it's a global thing now. But it's really important, isn't it, to get those two players probably in, starting together, James, probably from the first game against Nuremberg. I just wanted with Havertz, one thing we didn't really touch on is they're both coming from London. They're both playing in London, coming from London. There shouldn't be a huge transition period in terms of, moving houses and things like that. It should be pretty, easy to flow back in. Obviously, positionally, I just wondered, James, do you have any concerns with Havertz positionally adjusting back to maybe some of the stuff that he did in Germany a few years ago? Because in truth, Chelsea for 2.5-3 years, they've not used him in that way. And that's not anything to go by, because Chelsea are an absolute shambolic mess. But I just wondered if you have any sort of teething worries there.
I think you've got to have slight, worries, but I'm not overly. Yeah, I think Neil's just made a great. He's made two great points in what he's just said. If they were two players like not within the league, then you're going to have a massive adaptation. But it's like when you join a new job. If you're enthusiastic and you want to give it your all and you want to go, and you're not in the cold, like straight away. What is it? Out the frying pan into the fire. These are two people that we all know they're going to start. They're coming in, they're starting. They're not on the bench. So they're not. Timber, you could probably say he's the only one, new league, new air, but he's probably not going to start. I still think Ben White's going to be the starting right back for us, potentially. So he might have a bit of time to adapt. He's class though, trust me. Like I said before, that guy can dribble a bowling ball. Honestly, he's mad. Well, I want to see him up. I want to see him up against strikers because they're going to be thinking, right, he's going to dribble at me. Like he gets the ball and goes, I'm going to take you on, and they're going to have to worry about, well, hang on a sec, how far can I press him? Because he's going to try and outdo me. So I'm like, that just adds another new dimension to us. I can't wait to watch him play.
And 36 million, I think, is what was being reported. Yeah. I mean, that's a decent fee for a player. International, played, last 2 seasons, fully played for Ajax. He's a really versatile player, can play, like you said, right back, defensive midfield, right centre back was mostly where he played, but I do not see us playing him there, mainly because of stature, if anything, and the fact that he dribbles a lot with the ball, and our centre backs don't dribble a lot. I mean, they don't. We don't really allow them to, do we?
Yeah. And he's rapid. I'm like, we Mark Overmars at right back. This is mad. He's rapid. He's absolutely rapid. I can't wait. But no, back on Havertz. I've got no real. I did at the start, but I'm coming round. Seeing that picture with the dogs has won me over. So I've got no real problems there. And going
interesting
into
because it was old kits. How's he getting the old hand? We can't get our hands on old kits. He's got his hand on 3 old dog kits.
Maybe it's from when he's played us and he swapped them or something. He had them in the. He kept them, and
he knew what was coming.
Yeah, but I'll just say as well. I looked at some stuff the other day where I was getting a bit football nerdy, and I was looking at the height of certain players and what that meant in terms of their strides. And I think it was something like when Haaland is in full flow and he's either with the ball or making up the ground, as a 6'5" bloke, his strides are like nearly 4 to 4.5 meters. So no wonder everyone bricks themselves when they come up against him. But I'm like, well, Havertz isn't slow either. And he's 6'4". So that's about 3.5 to 4 meters. So you said it, Jack, the other day, we need people that play in tight spaces, or they make the big gaps smaller when we're on transition or we're counter-attacking. And I feel that compared to what we might lose defensively with Granit Xhaka being in there, because he's a much better tackler and everything else than Havertz is. But I think the offensive will improve. And I said it last week as well, didn't I? With Rice there that can go back and forth, and with the two in Saliba and Gabriel, who are, arguably they ain't slouches in foot races. I don't think the defensive worry is too high. I think we should be okay.
Yeah, I agree. He was the fastest midfielder in the Bundesliga the season that he left. 21.7 miles per hour. He is no slouch.
As well, Jack, he had very, very good stats playing on the right-hand side. So
yes,
we keep talking about
from Germany.
We keep talking about resting Saka. If you really wanted to, you could go to Havertz. Right, you're on the right-hand side if you want to, and then we can do what we've always wanted, which is Smith Rowe at that left 8. And, Smith Rowe's producing in this. He's having a pre-season before a pre-season, which is great. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's going to get an extended break probably when he comes back. I don't expect to see him playing in Germany or, the first game in America, but he'll definitely be there later on in the latter stage, which is fantastic for him because he's a player. We all know how good he is, and we all want him to kick on. So. Yeah, it's like we go back to, it's just the options. There's so many options. It's going to be hard for Mikel to decide what you want, but that's what you need. That's what, we had it in the Invincibles.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you're right. And I just wanted, just before we get on to sales, Neil, we're looking at about a 210 million outlay. You predicted 236.5. Jeez. For outlay. So you could well be right. James, you said 200 million plus. You hedged your bets there, so you probably still win it. I said 204 stupidly. I'm out of it already with these three ones. But who'd have thought we'd be talking about being near that number at the start of July? I mean, even I thought we were going to do signings early. I did think we were going to do a couple early. I think we said maybe 2 before Nuremberg. But for that outlay, I don't think I could have predicted that. And it does leave the question mark up, Neil. We could well be done, and we don't know. We could well be done, and if we are, by the way, I don't think we can really sit here and I know people will be. We can't really be angry about it. I mean, that they've got all their first choices in, which is a big thing for Arteta because he really, at times, if you're to believe rumours, hasn't done that. But these all three feel like first choice signings. There wasn't really anyone ahead of them, I just wonder what you feel. I think we'll go to the sales, but do you feel there's any gap in the squad with the possible sales of like the Xhaka, the obvious sales that are going to happen, the Xhakas and things like that, that we need to plug? A lot of people say we need another 6 or an 8. I think that's probably pending a Partey sale. Some people might say we need something else. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, like you said earlier, Partey goes, then yes, we still need someone there. I feel that. But if Partey stays, I think the midfield's are okay. I think what we've got is good enough. Your concerns over Saka, I think, have been addressed just simply because of the utility players that we've got in the front. Where you just mentioned Havertz, you love the way Jesus came and fitted in that role. You know that Martinelli and Trossard can switch middle and left. We've just got so many options now. Nelson, I'm still hoping he stays. I know I'm always been advocating that. But for me, the priority is Saliba, ESR, Nelson. I'd love all three of them, just extend for a long time. So you've got that option. The only other area, the defense is amazing. If Justin signs, oh my God, which it looks like he will as well.
Jurrien.
Yeah, I call him Justin because Justin Timber played.
Oh, I'll let you have it. No problem. I see where you're going with it. Carry on.
Yeah. On
the Nelson one, there's a bit of information that came out. Did you read the information about Nelson yesterday? I think it was Charles Watts that released it. He said they think it's agreed. They're pretty sure it's done, but he's on holiday and they weren't able to contact him, which is a bit weird. They said they're pretty sure, but because his contract's actually up, because it's July 1st now, until he signs on the dotted line, they can't be absolutely sure because he's technically out of contract. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean that would be obvious, but also I felt that was a bit weird. Like the I know he's on vacation, but on holiday, but a bit weird that you couldn't contact him. But again, we'll find that out within the next week because everyone's back next week. Yeah. Nelson's got no reason not to be back next week, so you would expect to know that pretty early on next week. Yeah.
So looking at the defence, I mean, the only one, if Tierney goes, which doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. If it happens, it might be towards the end of the window, I think. Then maybe we should be looking at an orthodox left back because Zinchenko is definitely not that player. So that would be my only now one, pending the Partey decision as well. As I said earlier, I would like Partey to stay. I'd like to give him one more season. But, who knows? If we get Mbappe and Caicedo, we don't have to worry about defence, really, do we? So
there you go. You did, you just don't know.
Yeah. If we're winning games 6-4, who cares? It's still a win, isn't it?
No matter, does it?
Yeah.
So we could dream. You never know.
I mean, I'm dreaming already in terms of transfer window and the outlay. I do think it's going to be a significant window for a lot of teams, and there'll be a lot of teams that go over the 200 million barrier.
Look, this is the way I see it. If Tierney stays, Partey stays, ESR, Saliba extend their contracts, Nelson as well. I think I'd be happy with the way it is. Honestly, I never thought I'd hear myself saying this. I would actually be content with what we've got. Yeah. If all of those permutations stay as they are and it happens. If we lose a couple of those players or they don't sign extensions, then yes, we've still got a little bit more work to do because we're talking about depth, which we lacked at the end of last season. We need that depth. We're also in the Champions League, so we need that depth and we need that ability to to fill in players and give them the rest that they might need, because it's going to be vigorous. The Champions League is a different animal to what the Europa League is. And Arteta has also got to get better at the two-legged games. So he's going to need these players to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on what happens now over the next few weeks. But I at the moment, as it stands, guys, I'm really happy with this. It's amazing. Incredible.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, would you say the same, James? I mean, for sales, just to go on, you mentioned the wage bill earlier. Our wage bill allowed us to do a signing like Rice because we exponentially dropped our wage bill. But obviously, it's quickly going back up because we're giving people new contracts, which is what happens when you're successful. So I'm not complaining about it, but we must be looking at our wage bill and looking at players that are not going to start above 100 grand a week and aging. And Thomas Partey is in that bracket probably, right? He's 200 grand a week. He's over the age of 30. He's not always fit. He's on the sale list if there's a proper offer there for him. Kieran Tierney's the same thing. He's not that old, but he's, fitness wise, we have questions, and he's over 100 grand a week as well. That's why Xhaka's probably also going over the, 120 grand a week. Pepe, we want to get him off the books, 140 grand a week, because we've got to try to balance it somewhere, because there's some significant wages coming in. Havertz is going to be on high wage, 250-ish probably. Declan Rice, I can't imagine it's much different. And then you've got all those other increases like Saka, Martinelli and Saliba. But James, what do you think? Do you agree with Neil? You'd be happy with it as it is if Partey didn't leave and all the contract signings happens that Neil mentioned? Or do you feel there could be or should be something else come in later in the window?
I do believe we'll move again, but it'll be later on. And I think it'll be one, potentially two, depending on who go. I still think even if we kept Partey, we will look to add potentially another 6 type player, because Jorginho is out of I can't see him being renewed next year, and I can't see Elneny being renewed next year. No. And it's just like, we'll get him now. He'll be a development type. You've got to remember, Lokonga's probably going to go somewhere. So that's another one you lose. So it's like, get a development type of player. He could probably have all of the Carabao, some of the early FA Cup. If we do well in the Champions League and you get the chance towards the end of it, if we're like qualified in the group and we've still got 2 or so games spare, play this, the name, people are throwing Lavia out there. I think he might go to Liverpool personally. However,
he would start for Liverpool. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
He will start for Liverpool.
Yeah. So I feel if we were to get someone like a Lavia, you could go, you play these games, mate. Get you a season, another season to get you up to speed, because he's not a terrible player. He bashed us when he played us at home. Yeah, completely ripped us to smithereens. So
I think that's going to be the hard part. Convincing him.
Yes.
Might be based on game time, and I don't think it's necessarily as easy for us as it would be for Liverpool.
No, it's not. No, I agree with you. The thing I'm very, very happy about, and Neil I think's mentioned it with Michael and everything on their pod as well, is there's no rush now.
Yeah,
we've had before. As much as we made a stupid, and again, goes to the previous regime of idiots that used to be at this club, we made a really insulting and borderline thick offer for Luis Suarez. That's arguably one of the stupidest things as a club we've ever done. Because if we'd offered proper money, we'd have got him. Because he wanted to come to Arsenal, and we'd have had him. And maybe you go to yourself, would I really want Luis Suarez at Arsenal with everything that Luis Suarez... I'd have took him at the time, because that was he was scoring 25, 30 for them. What would he have done with Alexis, Ozil, whoever else with us? God knows. He might have got even. I think he scored 50 odd once in a season at Barcelona, because he had the Xavis and he had all them and of this world feeding him. But to look at the now and not the past, we've got no rush to sell someone because we need money to buy. We're not like Chelsea, like you said. We're not that absolute mess of Chelsea where they're like, bloody hell, give me some money for this guy because I need to buy. I can't buy him until this one's gone. We're just, sit back in the chair. Oh, what's that? You're offering us 12 million. Get lost. Make that 50. We can bump the numbers up. No silly bids. None of your nonsense. Pay what we want or get out. So, don't ring this phone unless you've got serious money which is fantastic. That again is why You've got to credit Garlic, Edu, Vinay, all of them in the organisation, because there is no. We do have to sell. Yes, we do, because there's some there that are stealing a living, but we're in no rush to sell. We basically hold the power and in most of the negotiations, and we can dictate how much, what we want to do, and that's great. To have all the chips on our table is it's great stuff. And when have we ever sat here and said that?
No, exactly. You're coming from a position of authority and not desperation.
Exactly.
You've got the players in. If someone doesn't, like recently, we heard yesterday some reports that the reason the Xhaka deal's not going through is we're not going to do it for 13 million. We actually want 20 million for it, and that's again coming from a position of we've already replaced your Granite. We've already replaced you. So if you really want this move, we want you to have it too. But they're going to have to pay up because, we expect you to move. We will allow you to move at some point. But we're not in a rush for you to move because we've already replaced you. You're not going to be... Is Granit Xhaka going to want to be travelling with us on pre-season tour? This is a player that doesn't miss a game pre-season or otherwise, knowing that someone else is replacing him already and he's sitting there on the bench watching where he could be playing for someone else. He's not. So get your agent on a blower and make sure that club pays up, because we're not asking for ridiculous amounts. We're just asking for what players are worth, I think.
I mean, I saw a report that Tavares has come out and said, the same as Cedric, where he's like, no, I'm really desperate to get in with this new group and try and win back my place. I'm like, you're not going to be a starting left back for Arsenal. I feel there's potentially something there. I'm not saying he's a complete write-off, but you ain't getting. I can't see where you're getting minutes, especially as a left back. No chance.
But I also think with him, it doesn't necessarily be significant money. But he's got enough quality for there to be takers out there. 8-10 million. Definitely enough quality for. So why the bids aren't coming in yet, I don't know. But hopefully we hold our nerve on it. We start to create a little bit around each player, a little bit of media drive around each player. But the likes of, like we said before off air, the Tierneys and the Badigans, they should really, whether it's now or later in the window, they should be commanding decent fees, decent fees. And I mean, on our recoup, we all said we think we have the capability of recouping around 100 million. And I still think that's possible. It's very slow at the moment, but I still think that's possible. Maybe you just need one to kick it into gear, Unfortunately, we don't have a whole country like Saudi Arabia just popping off to buy all our players. Because that's what they do, but I think we've got the ability there. The striker one will be interesting. I think we said, Neil, a few weeks ago, and I think you were on that one as well, that we would like to see Balogun in pre-season. But I'm not convinced necessarily that it goes further than that. But you never know. If he has a really good pre-season, we're going to want to keep him, and then suddenly Eddie's on the chopping block, and you don't know. But again, it's a position of I presume we've got a group of players we're willing to sell. And it depends what kind of offers come in for them. So it's quite exciting, isn't it? Really, the right winger was the worry for me, but I think you're right. There's a lot of options there that might come. If you're going to have a year older Vieira, we don't know where he's going to play. I think he could well play out right more than centrally, but just physically. Gabriel Jesus again. Now we've got Havertz as an option and Trossard as an option there. You could see him filtering out right. So I think there are options because you do have to protect Saka. You can't be playing him 2 games, 90 minutes every week. Can't be doing that. So we need to protect him because he faded, didn't he? He faded off in the latter stages of the season, and he played more minutes than almost anybody. And I think his minutes in his legs at this age is sort of unprecedented. So we just have to be a little bit clever. But it looks like we're making all the right moves. Have you looked at other clubs? We don't like to look at other clubs, of course, but Liverpool making some significant outlay. Man United just signed Mount from Chelsea. Every player wants to leave Chelsea in their prime. Now, literally nobody wants to say. It's quite interesting that Pochettino hasn't been able to convince any of that group. When Arteta came in, Xhaka was out the door, wasn't he? Aubameyang was here and he was very important at the time, and he convinced them both very, very quickly that this was the place to be. And I think it's been quite interesting to watch Pochettino and someone like Mason Mount, who's basically their version of Bukayo Saka, right? I mean, he's boyhood player, and there's doesn't look like he's had any ability to even remotely U-turn these players, and it's not just him.
I think he's had a say. It's not like as much as I thought Potter was a great manager, to go from, and I think Brighton are on an ascendancy, so I don't want to diminish them too much. But to go from a Brighton to a Chelsea, he's never been a big club that's sadly used to winning the top honour. We could say they buy them, but they have won the top honours the last couple of years. He was just a fish out of water, wasn't he? He was dictated to, we're buying this one, we're doing this, we're doing that, and he sort of just went with it. Pochettino at least can be like, look, I've been at PSG. I've been a manager for a very, very long time. I've been around the block type, Yeah. And he's. I don't think that he would accept people being sold unless he consented on it. And for me, there's times I've always thought about Mason Mount. It's whether he wants to do it or not. He's too inconsistent. I know we don't really want to talk about other players, but he was linked with us, and I was like, no, because he's a guy that he decides. He's not consistent all the time. It's whether whether he wants to do it. Some people say that about Maddison. Maddison sometimes it's whether he can be, but Tielemans was another one. It's up to whether he can be asked or not if he wants to do it. So, yeah. But I don't care about Chelsea. They rot.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're obviously looking at City. Obviously, going to spend big money. I think they're about to spend 100 million on a centre back who I've watched him. He's very, very good, and they're obviously going to strengthen. But they're also going to have some transition. They're going to have Gundogan's left. They're possibly going to lose Bernardo Silva. They're possibly going to lose Mahrez. So there's some transition there for him. It's not like they're continuation, and he's very good at transitioning the squad and But then they've got a few players that are staying that are not necessarily in their peak years anymore. They're coming sort of towards the latter part of their career as well. Whereas we're actually getting younger, which is incredible because you're replacing Xhaka and Partey with Rice and Havertz, who are two 24-year-olds as opposed to two 30-year-olds. So collectively, we're actually going to be younger, which is quite incredible. But again, young, experienced players is exactly what Mikel Arteta is looking for. And I agree. I think we will go for one more this window. I don't have a clue who it's be. I think I said to James the other day, I think it's left field. I think we don't even know who it would be at this point, but I do think it will go one more, and it might be later in the window. But I think this is what we're looking at going into our early point of pre-season, and we can't be disappointed with that. So it'll be really exciting to see the players back. Hopefully, boys, we'll have some announcements next week. Maybe a Saliba contract even. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So we should be having it. I'm feeling we can have an announcement every day. Nelson, Saliba, Chuck Rice in the middle. Then, it could be fantastic. It'll be a very busy week for the Arsenal media team. But great job, Edu, Mikel Arteta, fantastic in the market. Always loved them both in the market in terms of incomings. And now we're starting to see what Champions League Arsenal looks like in the market. And we're proper big hitters. I'm loving it. We're pushing people aside. Get out of the way. We're back. But we'll be back next week to discuss maybe some hopefully some sales that might be happening. And obviously some of the announcements that will happen this week. Fingers crossed, Neil. But it looks pretty much on. We can find us at Purely Arsenal FP on Twitter. Sorry, James, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, turn your notifications on, because that Arsenal official account's going to be pinging next week.
Oh, yeah.
Probably be merchandise, though. You watch. So, Saliba new contract and potentially a new shirt number. If you've already, I feel bad for the people that have gone out there and put 12 on the bloody home shirt now.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna just like you, where you're authentic, it's gonna be out of date in a week.
Yeah, I've devastated on that. How do they get their flipping embroidery wrong?
I'm jealous of you. I think you've got a great shirt there.
I've contacted them twice. They don't respond. And I don't know what they're doing with the authentic. I don't know if they're going to re-release it. They're not going to release it.
To be fair, Neil has got a point that stuff that's got like errors on it goes up in value. For some reason, it goes up in value. Yeah, there's like. I remember once before.
It's like Chelsea's players; they're all error.
Yeah, I can't remember what. Well. I can't remember what wrestler it was that I had, but they done the color. They done the color wrong on the figure, and I had the one that had the wrong color. And that people were like, "Yeah, that's worth like 200, 300." I was like, "Oh, I'll put it on eBay now."
Yeah, there you go. You never. Well, keep hold of it. If someone offers something,
keep hold of it, Jack. Honestly, keep hold of it.
Yeah, well, let me know on that. It's very interesting on the authentic one. Don't worry, the new away kit's being released in a couple of weeks, boys. So I'm sure you'll be excited for that one. It's travesty, isn't it? Oh, I keep seeing pictures of it, and it looks worse and worse in every picture.
If you can't get a photo of Odegaard looking good in it, it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. I buy a lot.
I mean, I'll fully admit I'm a very heterosexual man, but when you look at Odegaard, you do turn. And I'm like, if you can't make Odegaard look attractive, you've
looks
messed
like
up.
he could have been in Westlife or something. Odegaard, he looked like a young boy band member.
Just poison grace personified, isn't he? He's just,
Yeah, exactly. He'll be back towards the end of next week, absolutely buzzing for it. Even Havertz is saying, I'm recharging the batteries for next season. They know they got big things coming. They know we're the place to be. We're the place to be again. So it's exciting times. Subscribe to us on Purely Arsenal on YouTube. Click on the link, just click subscribe, and then you'll see the podcast come up a little bit earlier there. Thank you for everyone that subscribes, comments on it on Twitter. We're on at Purely Arsenal FP, and you can find our individual accounts through there. We're always sort of chatting to people through there, and we appreciate everyone that retweets the podcast and stuff like that and subscribes to it. James, Neil will be back after official 200 million spending spree that might get confirmed by the end of next week. Madness, absolute madness. Can't believe it. Up the Arsenal, boys. Come on.